Welcome in, everybody. It is everybody's favorite day of the year, schedule release day for the NFL. All the media teams are going to be looking to make all these fun videos, fun graphics, this, that, and the other of all the schedules around the NFL. And we are going to be talking about the Texans schedule. Is it even tougher than we thought? We're going to break that down here on Texans Today, presented by Prize Picks. Also, the Texans overseas game. We're going to discuss that because they released all the overseas game. The Texans, they are going across the pond. Also, a very fun one. The Saints and Steelers are playing in France. There's a ton of overseas games this year. And then a bunch of NFL schedule leaks as well. We just learned that the Patriots and Seahawks will be playing each other in Week 1, a Super Bowl rematch. Also, everybody, get your plates ready for Thanksgiving because we have the Thanksgiving Eve game. It's going to be the Rams against the Packers. And then we know the first two games as well for Thanksgiving. It is going to be the Lions and Bears in the morning, and then we get a little Eagles-Cowboys action middle of the day. As the NFL schedule leaks keep on coming out, we're going to be bringing it to you here on the channel. And later on today, we are going to be giving you the full Texans schedule release here on the channel, so make sure you hit that sub button, turn on your notifications. If you forgot, well, here's a quick reminder of the Texans' opponents home and away. Some really good games that I'm looking forward to. There were rumors that the Texans were going to be playing the Bengals in Week 1. We'll see if that turns out to be true. Also, the Texans have to face the Ravens at home, the Bills, and the Cowboys to see who gets that Texas supremacy. On the road, we'll have to face the Browns, the Eagles, the Steelers, the Commanders, the Chargers, the Packers. We'll see when all those games are slated here today. So make sure you stay tuned as we'll be breaking all that down. And on today's show, we're going to be discussing if this Texans schedule is even harder than we expected. Welcome into Texans Today, presented by Prize Picks. I am your host, Jeremy Chugs, and coming up on today's show, the Texans' schedule continues to get tougher. Or is it actually good news for the Houston Texans? After the latest NFL scheduled news and a reminder, schedule day is today. It'll be released, and we will be breaking down every game here on the channel. The news around the Houston Texans is that they will be traveling over to London to play the Jacksonville Jags Week 6 up against them in Wembley Stadium. So it'll be a very early watch party, 8:30 a.m. kickoff. So we'll probably be going live like 7:30, 8 in the morning. So we're going to have a good time. Maybe some mimosas, maybe some, morning festivities over there for the London game. But I have a quick question for everybody in the chat. I went live for every game last year for your Houston Texans. And I want to know, how many watch parties did you join me for last season? I know not everybody is able to watch every single game, join every single watch party. But I want to generally know, how many watch parties did you join last year? Because we will be going live for every single game of Houston Texans football this season, and I hope you are there to join me through all the ups and downs, through all the craziness. The cardiac Texans, they keep us, they keep our heart rates going. So hopefully you'll be able to join me. We'll have giveaways, fun stuff, and be able to watch the games together all throughout the season. Let me know, how many games did you join me last year? Now, I already talked about the Texans' schedule and their strength of schedule, that they have one of the hardest schedules, even though they didn't win the division last year. They have one of the hardest schedules in the NFL, and they, according to the strength of schedule, have the toughest strength of schedule in the AFC South. Well, there's more news along with that because the gauntlet continues for your Houston Texans for this season. Not only do they have the hardest strength of schedule out of any team in the AFC South going into this next season, they also travel more than any other team in the AFC this year. As you see, the most miles traveled for NFL teams in 2026. Number one is going to be the San Francisco 49ers, and it's not necessarily close because they have to travel to Australia. Also, the LA Rams. That's why they are ahead of the Texans, because they are going down under. The Texans come in at number 3, and then you see the Cowboys, and the next closest AFC team would be number 5, the New England Patriots. And the big question really is going to be, is there any correlation between the amount of travel you have and the wins that you have, right? Because with the Texans, I would say, last year they had a tough schedule. They still pulled out AFC wild card berth and were able to win a wild card game. And it's going to be a season where we all think the Texans team, their roster is much better this season. But are they going to be hindered? Is there going to be any setback in terms of this schedule for the Texans? And will that affect them and their ability to win? Because I actually found some pretty interesting stats that actually contradict this, right? That say that, travel between teams and the amount of wins they have, it's actually not that big of a deal. I'll tell you what I mean here in just a second. But before I do, I couldn't do today's show if it wasn't for our friends over at Prize Picks. Get started today with America's #1 fantasy sports app out there. Super simple. Just pick 2 to 6 players and go more or less on their stats. If you're, looking at, season-long projections for football, they have that. But also, they have a ton of other sports available. They have basketball. They have tennis. They have hockey. They have, esports, racing, all of those available with our friends over at Prize Picks. And with the new social feeds feature, you can copy my lineup or producer Lopez's lineup, anybody here from Chat Sports, and what we have going on. And you can even follow one of our guys here at Chat Sports, Nick Roloff. He sent me this golf lineup that he's got going. I found this pretty interesting, right? Like, I'm not I'm not an avid golfer, but I will say it's a pretty fun thing to kind of get your lineup in on, possibly win some money while watching golf. So this is just one example of another lineup that you can use. New users, listen up, download the Prize Picks app today and use with the link in the comments and description and use code HMA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code HMA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Now, we talked about the correlation between miles traveled and games won. This is from 2024. And you see, like, the Patriots, they were 4, but, like, in terms of the teams that traveled the most, 11 wins for the Chargers, 8 wins for the Dolphins, 10 wins for the Seattle Seahawks. Like, not too shabby numbers right there. And you go to last season, the numbers are even better. Like, no team in the top 5 of most miles traveled last season had a losing record. And, hey, the third team on the list with the most miles traveled last year, they won the dang Super Bowl. So I don't really think there's necessarily a negative correlation between most miles traveled and the amount of wins that the Texans are going to have. And I would say it's actually the opposite. I don't know if it means that the team has, more of a chance to bond with each other. It's more of a chance for the camaraderie and these guys to come together. But there's no strong correlation between miles traveled and wins in a season. And I'm actually way more interested to see, when the bye week is going to be. Because I found this tweet from Landry Locker very interesting. He said, I don't know how D'Amico and the Texans feel about a potential Week 7 bye. He mentioned this because the Texans, they play in London in Week 6. And a lot of times the teams will get a bye week right after they have to travel for an international game. So he said, I don't know how they'll feel about a Week 7 bye, but I can't say with 100% authority that they hated the late bye in 2024. Hated is an understatement. So for D'Amico Ryans and the Texans, they feel like an earlier bye is much better for them. I don't know if it's because they feel like, splitting the season up earlier on, giving them a break, gets them a better chance later on in the year to where, like, if you have a Week 14, Week 13 bye, by Week 10, 11, 12, those guys are, pretty worn down, pretty tired. I would have preferred, personally, I would have thought a week later bye would have been better for this Texans squad because, you get a regroup, get a chance to, get a small break before the playoffs. But apparently the Texans view it differently. Apparently they think, an earlier bye is much better for their circumstances, and they feel like that is, the best chance for their team to, kind of get that regroup session earlier on in the season. Now, reminder, schedule release later today. I'll be breaking down the entire schedule once it has dropped. So make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications for the latest going on around the Houston Texans, and make sure you lock us in. Subscribe for daily content around this team. The latest news and rumors, we'll always get you covered with the latest going on around your Houston Texans.